Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the City Council meeting, Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. Let the record show that all councilors are present. We'll move on to adds and deletes. Excuse me. Add consent agendas number 10 and number 11. Delete consent agenda number 4 and number 6. Add 2023 audit presentation. Delete department committee reports number 3D. Add department committee reports number 3G, and add license and permits number 3. Could I get approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Fossil.
Support.
Support by Councilor Bayless. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Move on to approval of minutes. Approve the minutes of the regular Hibbing City Council meeting, June 26, 2024. Wishes of the council.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilor Swiber.
Support.
Support by Councilor Whitney. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Approve the minutes of the Hibbing City Council workshop meeting of June 26, 2024. Wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Bayless.
Support.
Support by Councilor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Approve the minutes special Hibbing City Council meeting July 1st, 2024. Wishes of the council.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilor Swiberger.
Support.
Support by Councilor Whitney. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll go to consent agenda. Approve accounts payable dated 7/10/2024, checks 177720 through 177821 in the amount of $1,567,577.90. Approve the payroll for pay period ending 6/28/2024 in the amount of $647,000, $289.86. 3, authorize the mayor to proclaim Friday, July 12th, 2024 as Hibbing High School Day in Hibbing. 4 is eliminated. Number 5, approve updating the automotive mechanic job description. 6 was deleted. Number 7, set the next regular meeting for Wednesday, July 24th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber. 8, set the next City Council workshop for Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, following the regular meeting in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chambers. 9, set the 2024 joint meeting with the Chisholm-Hibbing Airport Commission and the City of Chisholm for Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Range Regional Airport. 10, approve the updated list of 2024 election judges. 11, set the special meeting for discussion purposes of the Range Regional Safety Building. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to add that I just received a phone call right before the meeting asking for July 31st, 2024 at 5:45. There's a HEDA meeting, a special HEDA meeting at 5, and with 3 members on HEDA, it would be nice to get it all done in one night. But we would like to have a discussion regarding where we're at with the safety building.
Okay, so that is the time frame?
Yep, so it would be July 31st. It's a Wednesday. It's the 5th Wednesday of the month at 5:45 after the HEDA meeting.
At 5:45.
Correct.
So we'll set a special meeting for discussion purposes of the Range Regional Safety Building for July 31st, 5:45.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Hearing the consent agenda, wishes of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read and published with number 11, noting that it will be Wednesday, 7/31/2024 at 5:45 p.m.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilor Hoffman-Sockman.
Support.
Support by Councilor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. At this time, we have a 2023 audit presentation by Abdul.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Schwicker. I'm an audit partner with Abdo. I'll be running through the results of the 2023 audit with you. We are in the process of finalizing our audit report and expect to submit it to the state later this month or early August. I am going to start with the technical results of the audit. If you have any questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to stop me. And then I'm also going to go through some of the financial information as well. So in our audit report, we issued 3 different opinion letters this year. And the first one was our independent auditor's report, and that issued a cleaner and unmodified opinion consistent with what you've received in the past. Essentially, what that opinion means is that we did not find any issues during our audit. We were able to obtain all of our audit evidence, and there were no significant areas that we felt were lacking within the financial statements. We also issue an opinion letter over legal compliance with Minnesota state statutes. As a city, you have to comply with a lot of different state statutes, such as how you go out for bid for projects, pay your invoices, and run your council meetings. We did not find any issues from a Minnesota legal compliance aspect. And then this year, you are also required to have a single audit completed over your federal grant programs. You also had a single audit completed last year. This happens whenever you spend over $750,000 in federal program funds, and we did not find any issues there. So that was really great to see. It can be tough to go through a single audit. It doesn't happen all the time, but the finance department did a really great job of providing all the documentation and making sure that the compliance requirements were met. Okay, there is one audit finding I want to point out in the report. This is a finding you've had the last few years. It's nothing to be overly concerned about. It's an internal control area over the preparation of the financial statements. We prepare the financial statements for the city, as we do for about 80% of the cities that we work with. And when we do that service, we have to disclose it to yourselves and to the city that there is some additional risk there because you have an outside entity prepare those financial statements. Again, nothing to be concerned about, but the financial statements are a really important part of your internal controls. I'm going to talk about some of the financial information now, and I believe you all have a copy of my presentation. I'm on page 5, and I'm going to start with the chart that's going over the general fund results. And so the general fund is your main operating fund, and it has a very healthy fund balance at the end of the year. You were able to grow your general fund balance significantly over the past year. You have a policy to keep between 50 and 65% of your operating budget in your general fund reserves just for operating needs. And at the end of 2023, you had about 130%. So this gives you a lot of room to put aside funds for capital reserves and to do some of those capital planning needs. And so it's really important to take a look at that fund balance and make sure that it's being utilized the best way possible. It's one thing that the people that do your bond rating, they really focus on the general fund and your policy and where it's at. And so it's an area that you could have some flexibility with. I'm going to talk a little bit about your general fund budget for 2023 compared to where you actually ended up. You had some very strong revenue variances. One of the largest variances was within your investment earnings. Because you keep a larger cash balance within your general fund, it gets most of your interest from your investments. So you were about $1 million over budget. You budget very conservatively in interest, but you were about $1 million over budget in your investment earnings. So really strong year for your investments. That's really great. And then you also received about $900,000 more in grant funding than what you had anticipated. A big chunk of that was the public safety aid that all of the cities in the state received. That came in right at the end of December. I think like the last 2 days of 2023, you received a large chunk of public safety aid. So that is restricted for public safety dollars, but again, wasn't budgeted, so contributed to a stronger increase in your general fund. Just one expenditure variance that I want to point out. So overall, your expenses were about $700,000 less than what you had budgeted. And one of your larger areas was within the police department. Their wages were about $300,000 less than what you had budgeted for. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at your next year's budget. A couple of charts on the next page look at your general fund revenues and then spending for the last 3 years. And what I'll say about this is you've had fairly consistent spending in all departments. You can see over the last 3 years. And then also when you look at your revenues that are coming in, fairly consistent. Within this other category, you can see the big increase is the interest earnings that falls in there. And then separate from your general fund, you hold a few different special revenue funds. And the library fund is your main special revenue fund. That did increase their reserves about $80,000 from last year. The special revenue funds are all committed in purpose, and so they're not available for operating or everyday spending like the general fund. And then next I want to talk a little bit about your debt service funds. And so one thing we like to show here is the debt that was issued as of December 2023. You can see what those requirements look like over the next few years. And it's helpful to think about when is your next debt issuance going to fall off, so you have some room to kind of smooth out your debt levy. And so after 2028, you do have some debt maturing, and then again after 2029, a vast majority of your debt. So this is a really good time to look at that and think about, okay, how can you keep that debt levy really, really even, so you don't have a lot of ups and downs within your levy. And then next I'll talk a little bit about your capital project funds. And so you did use some of your capital project fund balances this year. So you had a decrease in your capital improvement fund by about $700,000 to use those reserve balances for some ongoing projects. Most of your capital fund is restricted in nature from previous bond issuances or other restricted grants that are coming in that are designated just for those purposes. And then I'm going to go into the sewer and some of your other utility funds. So the sewer fund, which is on page 11 here, is unique in that it should really be able to support itself. So the sewer fund had a really strong year with the receipts that it brought in. You were able to build up some cash balances. A portion of your sewer fund is designated to pay for retirement costs, but you were able to build up your cash balances in that fund to be at a stronger financial position. And then next is the garbage fund, and that fund has always been able to build up some cash within it, and this year was a really strong year there, and so you ended with about $6.3 million in cash reserves, part of which is designated for those retirement funds. And then we have the memorial building separated out, so you can see what those activities look like. During COVID, of course, there was not a ton of activity there, and so I love this chart that we show on page 13 because you can really see that the receipts have started to go back up. So it's a really interesting view of the last 3 years. So your cash balance had a really positive year, ending about $20,000. And then separate from all of the city funds is the Economic Development Authority, and that's comprised of a lot of different activities. Most of the balances within the EDA are restricted in nature and can't be spent for just general operations. You do have your operating portion of it, and here you can see the listing of all those different activities. And then the chart on page 15 is looking at all of your cash balances by type. And so you can see there all of the funds that we've talked about and how they're broken out and where the majority of your cash sits, which you can see is in the general fund. That's where most of your cash within the city is for those general fund operations, and where there's some room to put some capital reserves aside. And then we also have a quick chart that looks at your OPEB compared to your OPEB liability. I know in talking with the city's finance department, there's going to be some retirements coming up in the future, so it's important to think about those reserve balances that you have compared to what that estimated liability is. I'm going to show just a couple of charts that look at some ratio information. What we do is we take some information from the state for class 3 cities, which is cities between 10,000 and 20,000 in population. And then we also have some information for cities in St. Louis County, and then also we have the city of Virginia there as well. And this shows how you compare in taxes, and then tax rate, and then taxes per capita to those other comparison groups. I unfortunately don't have 2022 yet from the state, so I'll send that over to your finance department as soon as we get that. But you can see there 2020 and then also 2021 and how those compare. And then there is another set of comparisons looking at your debt on the next 2 slides. So that's looking at debt per capita and then also debt service expenditures as a % of your total. So there you can see how much borrowing you have done compared to those other comparison cities. And then the last set of charts I have for you is looking at your spending compared to those other those other cities. So the current spending and then also the capital expenditures per capita. The capital expenditures per capita is really hard to compare because capital just depends on the needs of every city. The current one is a little bit more interesting to see how that compares with other organizations. And I would love to take any questions that you might have.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was about our bond rating, which is so critical when we go out bonding. Based on this financial report, we should be able to keep a pretty darn good bond rating, which keeps the investment in, for larger projects, the most cost-effective for a resident. Would you
Yes.
agree with that?
I would agree with that, except to say that they also look at the planning that's put in place.
Right.
And so, right, and so having like the budget, a long-term plan, some sort of reserve policy that's been updated recently is really important as well. But yes, the city is in like a very healthy financial position.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things that kind of
Yeah.
mirrors, because we have a 10-year strategic plan for the city, so we do have the other component that they're looking for. Counselors? Any other questions?
Good.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will move on to public forum. We have 4 requests for anybody that will be speaking tonight. There's nothing can be acted on. It is a listening session. We'll be listening to what you have to say. And there's a 5-minute, I'll start a timer. You have 5 minutes to speak and say what you want to say. And with 1 minute to go, I'll just kind of raise my hand like that so that you know to close. If anybody has any questions, you could ask those right now. Any questions about that? Then I'll start Dave Betchart, who's sitting here. He had signed up, but said he really didn't need to talk, but he just wanted to note that he was here representing Grace Lutheran Church as one of their counselors, sits on their board, and I appreciate you coming today, Dave, and the conversation that we had. Next up, Dave, I'm gonna just note for the record, 1225 Old Highway 169 is your address, correct? Okay, for the record, we have to put your address, so. All right, we'll move on, and Mike Pavich, you are up next. So just state name and address once you get to the mic, and
Mike Pavich, 3823 6th Avenue West.
thank you.
I guess I'm just looking for information on, as far as where the entrances would be to this. You know, kind of hard to figure out where it's all gonna be. You know, as far as everybody keeps saying different things, different avenues and stuff, so. And do you have any information on where entrances would be, or?
Mike, the answer to that, what's been talked about is coming off 9th, straight up. So the right-of-way that is north of the Grace Lutheran Church is where it's a utility corridor, it's a road corridor. That is where the road would enter from.
That's where they have the curbs and the
Yes, where it's
fire
already up,
hydrant
curb
right now?
cut, ready for the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that would be the only entrance?
That would be the main entrance going up. We had talked about possibly going down, extending in front of Jasper Engineer, all the way to make an L to connect there for utilities too. That's still undecided, but for sure what we're looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, because you were in on the discussion, and we have others in the audience that could, we're looking at coming off 9th.
Okay.
Yep.
So how far back does the property that you're proposing, or the housing that you're proposing, how far towards, let's say, Old Bemis Oil does that go? Is
It's,
it,
the property is about the same width as, it's a 5-acre spot. It's adjacent, just east of, the Grace Lutheran Church property. So it's 5 acres. I don't know what avenue it would be in line with. But,
So as far like at the end of my property, it's kind of hard to tell where Ninth goes in.
yeah,
And then the trees are like for a buffer for whatever road going.
Mike,
I
if-
don't know the distance.
okay, if you go on St. Louis County Land Explorer, you will see, and look it up, you'll see the piece of property, and you'll be able to see all the property lines
Okay.
and how they line up.
Okay,
That'd be the easiest way to look at it.
yeah. Do you have to do any special testing before you do a project like this?
You said
Like
testing?
testing, like drilling
All
or testing the
environmental,
soil?
yeah. Environmental is the first thing that has to be done in any piece of property that
Yeah.
we work on.
'Cause I'd had that done on mine at one
Yep.
time too. Just, trying to figure out what the process would be.
The first process is environmental.
Yeah.
And we just finished that process up on Highland Hills. And any piece of property, we have a manufacturing company that's looking at, is building new, and we just finished the environmental on that too. So that is the first thing that has to be done. Yep.
How many units are proposed for this first, and when do you possibly propose to start?
Jackie from HR, could you answer that question? Come up to the mic and talk to Mike.
It's proposed to have 52 units.
Pardon?
52 units will be there. A combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. So there'll be 2 buildings with townhomes and then 1 building with the 1 and 2.
Are you proposing expansion?
There's a lot of questions that aren't answered right now. So for this particular project right now, the only thing that necessarily will happen there would be the 52 units. But speaking into the future, that would be further testing, further planning. Can't really speak to the answer
Yeah.
on that, but I know that certainly we'll communicate that and make sure that the community is aware of what's happening.
So depending on when all the different testing and all preliminary testing.
Yes, because of all the testing that we need to do, we have delayed the start date until spring to fall of 2026.
You good, Mike? 1 minute if you want to keep, if you have any other questions. Thank you.
All right.
At this time, Joel Minter, Mr. Minter, if you come up and name and address, and,
My name is Joel Minter. I'm 3814 6th Avenue West, and you answered most of the questions I needed answered from Mike, but my one question is, if you do put, what would determine whether you'd put a second access in like 5th Avenue West or anything like that?
well, I think as we move along in the project, we've discussed as our Economic Development Board, HEDA Board, our city council will look at what I would think is what would cause the less traffic through that area. And I think that's one of the reasons why we talked about possibly going all the way down to the Jasper Engineer. What street is that?
5th West.
That's Fifth West.
Then my question is, those streets are narrower than normal Hibbing streets. Are you gonna widen them, put sidewalks in? Because you're probably gonna have foot traffic through there.
Those are all good questions. And that would all, when development occurs, once all our environmental is done and the actual planning is occurring and how things would move forward, all those questions will be addressed because walkability is a big component of this housing. So you bring up a great subject.
Because, if I do go down that 5th West once in a while, not very often, and if people are walking on the street, it's gonna be a hazard for them. So they're definitely gonna need sidewalks and, so then they've put, I think recently, in the last 5 years or so, they put the sewer and water, there's fire hydrants and stuff back there, but there's no sidewalk. The street is stops on 38th, I think?
Yeah, I think that's
36,
about where it
somewhere there.
stops.
So they will have to widen them then, or?
All of that will be determined, but I think everything you just brought up will all be brought into the conversation on, as we move forward, how we want to connect everything together. But in answer to Mike's original question, the original access or the main access will be off 9th Avenue.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I would just like to add too, this is all contingent upon the successful application
Yes.
in December to be Heather.
right. If HRA is applying right now, what we're giving them we're working with them, we're partnering with HRA, so that she has a great opportunity to receive up to $25 million of funding, which is state, doesn't cost our taxpayers, and it takes buildings that are 60, 70 years old and they become townhomes, and it just the approach to workforce housing is so different now than what it was 60, 70 years ago. And so, you're good then, Joel? We have Jake Doherty. Jake, just name and address, and mic is yours.
Jake Doherty, 802 West 39th Street. Also here to talk about the concerns of the HRA, new proposed area. Guess first question, so that area back there, obviously there's no utilities in the area where the apartment's gonna be
There are
constructed.
utilities running up that same corridor where the road would be. There is water and sewer in that area. Everything that has to be checked for sizing and storm would have to be added. Yes.
So under that funding that HRA is applying for, was that covering just the construction of the complex, or is that covering all the utilities being?
That is, it is the complex and utilities on the site where they're building. And Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong. What we went for in funding this last legislative session is we got some additional funding specifically for housing and those issues that go with housing. So that also wouldn't be on a taxpayer because it's legislative dollars designated specifically for housing issues or developing housing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have, a few other concerns. I mean, secondly, obviously just like the Cobb Cook Park area community members, just really not something that's desired in a, quiet, family-oriented neighborhood. I know that it's grant money and it can only be used for all the housing and housing only, but just a couple of years back, I got back involved in the Youth Hockey Association as the director for a short stint. And we're not even able to fill, 8-team tournaments anymore, due to the lodging issue in this town. Like I said, I know this is, housing and housing only grant money, but 14 years ago, even when the Kaler was open, we're getting 12 to 16 teams, from Smites all the way up to Bantams, filling these tournaments, generating, the income for our businesses and our community. And it just, I just feel like that's something that's more important in the town, for longevity and, just for, families to locate back to the Hibbing area and everything. So I get there's a need for the housing. It just, I really don't, see the positivity of putting it where proposed area is. We already have Park Place, just down the road from us, and putting our neighborhood smack dab in the middle of two lower income facilities. I just don't see how that is, I guess fair by any means. So property value obviously be driven down between all of our houses in that area too. So said respectfully, I love this community. I love the town. I have a ton of pride in this town, but I would really just like to know if there's any other possibilities in other areas of town. I know there's been issues that have came up with other areas they've talked about with soil and stuff already, but just wanted to speak my 2 cents, and thanks guys for your time.
Jake, I appreciate that information. Just for everybody's note, housing is the #1 issue nationally, statewide, regionally, and in this community, all communities. Business development, attraction of businesses, one of the biggest things that inhibits that is the workforce has no housing. That's why this is just one part. We just finished a housing study, and I'm not sure if anybody in here, it was all online, you could be a part of that housing study. It was completed, the HRA was part of our housing study. That's just one component of housing. We have other areas where we're gonna do housing. How zoning is related is very important. When you're scoring for HRA housing, they want neighborhood feelings. They want it to be part of a neighborhood, not an individual 10 miles out. You can't get funding if you don't incorporate them as part of a neighborhood. And This is workforce housing. This is people at Guardian Angels, at Sammy's, working in many different areas. It's people that serve you every day is who's working in these, living in the HRA apartments. And there's 380 residents that are in HR apartments, correct me if I'm wrong, 48 families. I mean, this is important. But it's just one aspect of housing that we're moving forward with as a city. But we have to offer all aspects of housing according to our housing study, and this is just one component of it. But I know there are many other aspects. You know, you mentioned the hotel, the Kaler Park, hopefully will be opening soon. It's a total remodel, completely from start to finish. That gives you the ability to bring more people into town, an economic driver of youth sports. As you mentioned, Jake, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and how important, you know, those types of events are in a community, so. But anyways, I appreciate everybody's comments here tonight. And I'm glad you took advantage of speaking tonight and expressing your concerns. We want to do it right, we want to do it, and it starts with a good environmental impact statement. That is the first component that we need to get completed before we can move forward. But the funding portion of it has to move forward too. There's timeliness on everything, so. Any questions? I'll just take any questions if you might have them. All right, I thank you so much. With that, we'll move on to department committee reports. Director of Public Works, City Engineer, Mr. Story.
Mayor and Council, this year's sidewalk project, when we opened bids, the original scope was about $45,000 under budget. During the project, we had 3 residents ask if they could participate in the project. So we added these 3 residents and roughly 220 feet of curb and gutter at various locations around town under the project. This brought the scope of the project for the city portion up to $52,621.95. We did have $75,000 budgeted for this project, so we are still under budget. So I'm asking for council for the change of scope for this project.
Hearing what Mr. Story had to say regarding expansion of the sidewalk, city sidewalk project, wishes of council.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilor Whitney,
Support.
support by Councilor Hoffman Sockman. Any discussion? I'm glad that we expanded, Jess. It's nice, we had the money, and it's nice that more people are taking advantage of that program. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to City Clerk, Deputy Administrator, Ms. Sepulveda.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. Under the City Clerk tonight, we have a resolution making application to and accepting funds from the Northeast Minnesota Office of Job Training Talent Development Program for leadership training. And the Northeast Minnesota Office of Job Training Talent Development Program offers annual grant opportunities of up to $10,000 per year from July 1st to June 30th. This application will cover the training from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. As you remember, we did do 3 stints of it last year, and it was very beneficial to our leadership. So I'm just asking for offering the resolution.
Okay, what we're looking for is a resolution regarding applying for funds for job training, talent development. Wishes of the council.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilor Schweberger.
Support.
Support by Councilor Fossil. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. B.
So under B, this is to amend Hibbing City Code Chapter 2 entitled Administration and General Government by revising Section 2.53 City Administrator and by adopting by reference Hibbing City Code Chapter 1 and Section 2.99, which among other things contain penalty provisions. And this would be for, it takes the purchasing thresholds from the ordinance and refers to the policy and state statutes. Emergency purchases reflects what's in the emergency management status for purchasing. And we have talked about these as we're kind of updating all of our ordinances.
So we'll be
Step by
closer to
step.
following state ordinances, their recommendations.
Correct. Ours were a little more rigid than the state, but it just gives us a little bit more room on that.
Very good. Hearing
especially for
what,
something that's like a time sensitive.
okay. Hearing what Ms. Sepler had to say, wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Bayless,
Support.
support by Counselor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. C.
Under C, it would be to amend City Code Chapter 17 entitled Stormwater Pollution Prevention by amending Section 17.08 entitled Reduction of Clear Water Stormwater in the Sanitary Storms Sewer System, and by adopting by reference Hibbing City Code Chapter 1 and Section 17.99, which among other things contain penalty provisions. I'm going to ask Jesse to jump in on this one, as I wasn't in on the,
Mayor, council, so this program's been in place, the ordinance, for a couple years now. So there was some language in the ordinance, and in the forms that the contractors use, just to clean up, and we added the penalty provisions in there, and that's in the, schedule for our fees. So that's listed out in there. So it's just a few minor things that we wanted to change with the ordinance, for our inspections, for point of sale for the sanitary sewers.
Okay.
thank you.
Hearing what Ms. Sepler and Mr. Story had to say, wishes of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Hoffman Sockman,
Support.
support by Counselor Hildebrand. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd just like to let the council know that on July 1st, Jill Rainey, our new library director, started. And so just a warm welcome for Jill. She is in the audience, and just welcoming her.
All right. Jill, would you stand up, please? Well, I want everybody to know who you are, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wondering about Ash, she tried to sign up, she tried to, the whole, signed up for tonight.
Sandy?
I was asked during the, I did miss an email, so I apologize for that. If at some point we could go back to public forum.
I'll tell you what, I'll ask council if they're comfortable with that. I'd have no problem going back to public forum at this point before we move on to Ms. Solavanti.
I'd like to let her speak.
Jamie Bayless makes motion to let her speak. Yep. Support?
Thank you.
Support.
Support by Counselor Hildebrand. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? The mic is yours.
Sorry about that, Ashley.
So we're back to open forum.
It was a week.
Yeah. Okay, so what I have for you is just take one, pass it down, there's things there, and we'll talk about that.
And again, name and address, just like before, and 5 minutes to,
All right, so my name is Ashton Martin. Address is 301 North Inner Drive.
thank you.
As the Cobb Cook Coalition, a grassroots neighborhood organization, we have quickly organized to promote and protect Cobb Cook Park, a beloved century-old green space and recreation area on Hibbing's west side. This parkland was donated by Frank and Vera Ansley in 1916 with the stated covenant on the sale of deed document that the land was to be used only as a park, otherwise returned to the Ansley family. The descendants of Frank Ansley, an early Hibbing pioneer and former two-term mayor, have expressed their desire for their ancestors' legacy and intent regarding the park to remain in perpetuity. So I had an email sent out to you guys with a letter from Patricia Ansley. She is the wife of grandson Frank Ansley, who's related to the Frank Ansley who gave us this park. Now we have other letters from other descendants of Frank Ansley that I have handed out to you and that I'll read as well. Greetings to the residents of Hibbing. My name is Sierra Ansley. My sons Avery and Brennan Ansley Weldy, and I would like to thank the city for reconsidering the sale of Cobb Cook Park so that it can be maintained as a community space as intended. My late father, also named Frank in honor of his grandfather, was born in Hibbing, and the city always had a special place in his heart. It means a lot to my sons and I that this connection between the Ansley family and Hibbing be preserved. The park was intended to serve the community, and clearly it has, seeing the outpouring of support to keep it. These days, community is more important than ever, and we hope that the park continues to play a valuable role in bringing people together. The importance of community cannot be overstated, and one cornerstone of community is safe, quality housing for everyone. We hope that moving forward, community housing planning can be undertaken in such a way as to meet the needs of everyone involved. Housing for everyone is an issue close to my heart, as my own family has struggled for years to maintain adequate housing, even experiencing homelessness at times. Everyone deserves safe, quality housing, and we hope that the pursuit of this goal can be done in a way that brings the community together rather than divides it. The next letter is from Brennan Ansley Weldy. My name is Brennan Ansley Weldy. I am a living descendant of Frank Ansley. The intent of this land, which my great-grandfather donated, is for the prosperity of the community. It was to bring the community together and make Hibbing a great place to live. I am honored that his land has been used to create Cobb Cook Park, which is central to the community. I am glad that the city is willing to reconsider or prevent the selling of the land that my great-great-grandfather donated to the community. The purpose of public housing is to help the community by extending a helping hand to those who are less fortunate than the rest of us and help them get back on track in life. This park is very important to the community as a whole, providing a place for children to play and for community socialization. Selling it away goes against the whole purpose of public housing. It would just create animosity between those in public housing units and everybody else, fostering an us versus them mentality, dividing the community. No one in my family would want to divide the community in this way. This goes against the wishes of my great-great-grandfather, who loved the community to the point of donating his personal land for their use. I am glad that the city is willing to reconsider selling it away to private interests. I hope that the community can come together to find a way to produce high-quality public housing while also strengthening the integrity and heritage of the community. This is what my great-great-grandfather, Frank Ansley, would have wanted. And then the last thing I handed out to you is just a old newspaper article so that you guys can put a name to the face, Frank Ansley, and kind of learn a little bit about the history of the man who donated the park to us. Now, I know that Cobb Cook Park is not being considered for sale at this point, but our goal here today is really to have the covenant renewed in a way that continues to have the land for public use in perpetuity, meaning that there's no expiration to the covenant. Thus, we ask the city to grant official recognition of the Ansley's family's request to honor their ancestors' land donation intent in perpetuity. Establish legal park protection. We look to the city attorney to provide a recommendation on what form of protection is best, such as a conservation easement or other action to achieve this goal. Designation of Cobb Cook Park as a historical park in Hibbing, enjoying the same protections, attention, and city maintenance as other parks in this category. Continued maintenance of the park's green space and recreational equipment for the residents to enjoy in a safe and clean environment, and spaces or places at the park that can be utilized for 1, a permanent memorial honoring Fred Cobb and Earl Cook's brave military service. 2, potential additional honorary features such as park benches, signs, or other things that recognize the Ansley family's park legacy. Our goal would be to fundraise in partnership with local service organizations to build and maintain these features. Thank you for your consideration of our proposal request, the Cobb Cook Coalition.
Ashley, I appreciate you're right on time too. So I appreciate your comments today, and again, we can't take any action tonight, but I appreciate not only the information you read, the letters that you secured, the information you gave us on Frank Ansley. I love history, so this is great to read. And then, of course, your commitment and your comments regarding what you would like to see moving forward. So, again, at this time, we can't make any motion, but it's certainly, you've asked for a point of discussion, and that I can guarantee you that will happen. So, all right, I thank you. All right, at that point, we will move on to Highland Hills Small Area Plan, Community Development. Director Betsy Olivanti.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I do have Bob Streeter, the consultant I've been working with on this particular project. And he has a presentation that as soon as it's up on the screen here, we will be ready to go. There we go. Awesome. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Bob, and he will explain the project so far.
Thank you, Betsy. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's nice to meet you face to face finally. My name is Bob Streeter. I'm with Streeter Consulting. I have, for the last 3 years, been working in greater Minnesota mostly, assisting communities with their economic development and development plans. And prior to that, I spent over 25 years working in medium to large cities in Minnesota as a community development director, doing very similar work. When I'm not doing this kind of work, I teach at the University of Minnesota, sometimes Hamlin and Mankato State, teaching the same kind of subject matter. So tonight what I'd like to do is update you and then lay out for you the planning process to determine or the development of the Highland Hills area. So I work with another gentleman. His name is John Slack. He's a landscape architect. He works with Perkins Will. He's not able to be here tonight. But I'm going to introduce the project, talk about the process, the roles, responsibilities, council expectations, and then any questions or feedback you may have, I'm happy to take those. So you're all familiar with the neighborhood, but for those who aren't, this area is basically in the center of town. It's the last large vacant parcel that's served by public utilities. It's relatively flat. The surface soils are comprised of iron mine tailings, and is currently being occupied as a park and with walking trails. The area itself is almost 70 acres. Divided into 6 parcels. There are deed restrictions, as I'm sure all of you are aware, that anything that's developed up here can only be single-family housing. It must include an 8-acre contiguous park, and motorized vehicles are not prohibited to drive or move on any of the current or future trails. So how do we take from what you've just seen and how do we...
Bob, can I,
Yes.
if we have a question, can we?
Oh, yeah, certainly, Mayor.
So, back to the last slide.
Yes.
The one after that. Yes. That was the deed restriction. So basically what you're saying, so everybody understands, that property as was donated to the city, had the restrictions on it. You can use it. Very good. I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, so how do we go from a 65-acre, largely vacant area of land with some restrictions to a single-family neighborhood with an 8-acre park? So we're going to undertake a small area planning process. This is a very common process. It's been used in this country, in this state for over 100 years. And I'm currently doing 3 of these in other communities in Minnesota right now. So it's a way to develop a plan for development for the area. So at the end of the day, when the process is over, you know what's going to go there, what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost. And it really helps set the stage for any changes in the city's comprehensive plan, zoning amendments, subdivision regulation, or the capital improvements plan. But it really supports the council in decision-making. So there's 4 steps to this process. Gathering background information, which we've been doing for the last year, and that's the survey, the phase 1 and phase 2, some of the infrastructure analysis and the regulatory analysis. That's all information that's been gathered to determine what the site constraints and opportunities are. In addition, the city completed a housing assessment, so there's a much better understanding of what the housing demand, what the housing market is for single-family homes. The second step is to prepare a vision and goal statement. So after the council has had the opportunity to take in all this information, what is your vision for this piece of land? Not just in terms of the use, what's it gonna look like? How is it gonna be laid out? How is the park gonna be laid out and designed? Based upon that vision and goal statements, then, that's what drives the next phase, which is to prepare alternatives. So we're gonna prepare 2 or 3 alternatives for the council to look at, comment on, and provide feedback on on what this development will look like. And then somewhere in that third phase, you're gonna pick a preferred alternative. It may be it may be A, B, or C, or it may be parts of C, parts of A, and a little bit of B. That'll be your choice. And then the last phase is taking that concept plan and those estimates of cost and then implementing that. And that's really when we get into amending the comprehensive plan, zoning, subdivision, and the capital improvements plan. So let me just walk through, this is a roadmap for what this process is gonna look like. So in phase one, which we started in 2022, we did a lot of the work I've just described. So tonight, we're just reviewing the process, and we're gonna establish some roles and responsibilities. But phase one's gonna end with a summary report. You're gonna know everything about that site that you ever wanted to know, so you can determine what the site opportunities and constraints are. When we move to phase two, that's when we begin to engage the community. So we're gonna meet with the community broadly as well as the neighborhood, and we're gonna talk about, this is the planning process. This is what we know about the site. Here's what we know about the market. And what are your hopes or concerns, citywide as well as for folks who live next to the site? Then we're gonna take that information and we're gonna come back and share all of that with you, and you are gonna prepare a vision and a goals statement. And then you're gonna finalize that, and that's what I'm gonna use and the gent I work with in your city staff to prepare the alternatives. And that's phase three. So we're gonna prepare 2 to 3 alternatives, and then we're gonna come back to you, and you're gonna provide us feedback on what you'd like to see, where you'd like to go. And then we're gonna refine up to 2, and then we're gonna meet with the community again and get their feedback on those 2 alternatives. And then we're gonna come back to you with all of that input and information, so you can revise those 2 and pick a preferred alternative. And then the last phase, or the phase 3 continues, then we're gonna present what you've chosen to the community, both at large and the neighborhood. This is what is going to happen on this site. And then you'll take some action. You may adopt the plan, as well as we'll put together cost estimates for all of the infrastructure, and things like that. So here's an example of a project I'm working on right now. This is a 30-acre site. So this is what it'll look like. There'll be additional drawings underneath, but this is sort of a conceptual view of a 30-acre piece of land with 61 lots, designed. It's got a 3/4 acre park. It's got 6-foot wide tree-lined boulevards with walking trails throughout, and the construction is expected to begin in 2025. So this is an example of what you'll see for the Highland Hills site. Phase 4 then is just the implementation. So any kinds of comprehensive plan, zoning or subdivision or CIP modifications or changes, that'll happen in this phase. You will plat the property. Eventually, civil engineering design drawings will be created. Phasing of the development will be determined, and ultimately construction will begin on part of it, and consequently private development. So during this process, I'm just going to quickly highlight on a couple things. So the role of the council is to authorize this process, which you already have, but it's to set the expectations, and it's to make all of the key decisions at specific points along the way. The Planning Commission, for example, will provide input on the issues, the vision, the goals, and plan alternatives, and they'll assist you in making decisions. The community and neighbors, they'll do the same thing, and you will get all of that feedback, as I'm sure you already have received some. So with regard to council expectations from the Hibbing's strategic plan, some of the important things the council has identified is this idea of quality housing stock that is affordable and accessible, that a process is transparent and collaborative, and then the city's comprehensive plan sort of echoes that, and it talks about ensuring adequate and affordable housing for all residents and potential new residents. In addition, it's to value the neighborhood input, but reflects the city-wide input and vision. The idea here is to achieve an attractive development plan while working within the site's physical opportunities and constraints to respond to market realities for housing. What will the market actually build? And the most important thing is at the end, you want to create a site, a development that's going to attract private investment. That builders are going to go, I'm going to build a house there because people want to live there. So that's a lot to cover in 8 minutes, Mayor and Council, but if you have any questions or feedback, I'm happy to take those now.
Bob, I have one question. What components, in your years of being involved with this, what components in a neighborhood development how would you rank them as far as when you're trying to attract builders? What are the top components that they look for that they feel make them attractable because they want to build and people want to buy?
Yeah.
So,
I would say a couple of things. One is smaller neighborhood space, like I mentioned the 3/4 acre park in that development, someplace where neighbors can gather the neighborhood. Number two, when you look at the right-of-way, the roads, wide boulevards. That one had 6-foot boulevards, planted trees. So, you know, when you drive through some older parts of a city, you see how the trees come over the top, the canopy, that's really attractive. I think the other thing that, two other things are trails and sidewalks, not just up and back, but how do they work and how do they move throughout the neighborhood? So you can move throughout, you can visit with your neighbors. It's not the same old all of the time. And then in some of the developments, one development in particular I worked on it was rather large, it was 200 acres, but everybody who stepped out the back door stepped out into open space. And the way you moved through the subdivision was not, you could move through the sidewalk in front of the house, but it was through the connected open space and back. And I've had national home builders tell me they love that. It's easy to sell homes when the site is designed for people.
okay.
You know, so does that help?
Yeah, no, I think you answered what some of those I think we probably all considered were important components, and
Do you have some, Mayor?
I like the boulevards. I really like wider streets, and I like boulevards, so that your sidewalks are set back.
If I could say one other thing too, a lot of, and Jesse knows this, but a lot of right-of-ways are typically 66 feet on local roads.
Yep.
In the developments I've been involved in, we narrow that to 60 feet. Because it's such a local road, and these roads up here aren't gonna carry a lot of traffic.
Yep.
That has the benefit of slowing traffic down.
Boulevards too give a place for when we're, as a city, when we're plowing snow, we're not putting it on the sidewalk. So it
Right.
helps our residents or keeping their sidewalks open if you're not putting heavy snow that they have to remove. So that's why I like boulevards.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Mr. Mayor, it also complements what's already there.
Yeah.
Any other questions, councilors, you might have for Mr. Streeter?
I had one about the initial planning or about the initial slide you had put up. You did state that the space up there in its entirety all has to be single-family homes?
That's correct.
Okay. Remember that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Streeter. I really appreciate
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
taking the time to walk us through that. Okay, we go to B. Ms. Olivanti, it's,
Yes, excellent, Mayor and Council, thank you. So item B tonight is to approve the agreement with Perkins and Will to complete the concept designs through Phase 3 of the Highland Hills Small Area Planning Project in the amount of $101,900. I just wanted to bring this up to make sure. So in your packet, the project Phase 1 source of funding, and then project phases 2 and 3 sources of funding are in there. That part has been committed to this project when we created the project fund in 2022. So the funds are there, but I want to allocate them to this purpose at this time. We did do an RFQ process and received back 2 quotes. This one is the more reasonable quote. So I'd recommend, or I'd ask for approval at this time.
so what you said is the funding had already been pre-approved, it's already sitting there, now you're designated to where you want to spend it
Yes.
after your RFP. Okay? Hearing what Ms. Olivanti had to say, wishes of the council.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilor Schweberger.
Support.
Support support by Counselor Hildebrand. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. C, Ms. Olivanti.
Excellent. So Mayor and Council, tonight I'd offer resolution number 240702, authorizing the city of Hibbing to apply for and accept funds from the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Agency's Community Infrastructure Grant Program. This is for our high priority goal number 4, creating a CIP for city facilities. And this particular grant request would be to, for the city hall windows to do matching funds for the funds that were received from the Minnesota Historical Society this past June. And the funds, we have to reapply and do a new resolution because they went into a new fiscal year. So as of July 1, we need a new resolution to go back after the same funds. I will just re-up the grant application that was submitted in the spring.
Very good. Hearing what Ms. Olivanti had to say regarding her new resolution, wishes of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Counselor Hoffman Sockman.
Support.
Support by Counselor Whitney. Any other discussion? Time frame on funding, that's one question I have. Our funding from the Historical Society for window repair and then from the IRRR, is there a time frame on that funding and maybe the start of those windows?
So on the Minnesota Historical Society funding, they sent the approval for funding with a couple of requests to us to do additional detail work back to them. Nick is currently working on that with our architect on that project, Widseth. We are waiting for Widseth to give us some information, I believe, or Nick has received it on the historical preservation aspect of that. Widseth was working with the SHPO office or State Historical Preservation Office on that particular request that they had sent our way. So I don't believe that we've sent the contract or signed the contract at this time. So that one, I don't know exactly when that will end based on once the contract is signed, then we have a date when those funds can be spent. The IRRR has said that they will allow us to match their funds with the state historical funds so that when we're spending them all at the same time and the IRRR doesn't run out before those do.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We move on to, we skip D, number E.
Excellent. So tonight, the item E is to approve the purchase agreement with the HRA of Hibbing. And this is for, so the City of Hibbing's 2023 strategic plan identified a core strategy for well-rounded, strong quality of life. And the quality housing stock that is affordable and accessible was identified as a criteria of that strategy. The City of Hibbing's 2023 strategic plan also identified a core strategy for safe, secure, and valued community, whereas everyone is an integral and involved part of the community and has a safe place to live and raise a family, was identified as a criterion of that core strategy by the City Council. Therefore, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority has undertaken planning to redevelop the housing at the Green Haven site. And the city and the HRA have been collaborating on that planning since 2023. The city has land that is available for constructing the necessary workforce housing and wishes to convey a parcel to the HRA to build their new housing development. And the city will undertake the necessary work to ensure, per the council meeting on July 1st, I believe, your special council meeting, that the parcel is shovel ready and convey this property to the HRA for the workforce housing development at no cost, additional cost to the HRA. So therefore, we're asking for the City Council to approve the purchase agreement for parcel ID 139-0050-04676 for the HRA's new development.
Very good. Hearing what Ms. Olivanti had to say, wishes of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Hoffman Sockman.
Support.
Support by Counselor Schweberger. Any other discussion?
That's not dependent on her getting the money, getting the funding?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Excellent. So then item F is Resolution 240703 in support of the HRA of Hibbing's project. This is just to designate that parcel, should funding be secured, and also then the necessary work to create it to ensure that it's parcel, shovel-ready for that project, as you indicated at the July 1st meeting.
Very good. Hearing what Ms. Olivanti had to say, wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Bayless.
Support.
Support by Counselor Fossil. Question I have, I know we've looked at doing environmental costs already.
Yes, sir.
What would the time frame? When will that come before the council to get that process started?
Thank you, Mayor. I have been working on getting quotes for that. Right now, it looks like the survey work, I'll just give you some rough numbers. Survey work and wetland delineation looks to be about $5,300, somewhere around in that aspect. And then the geotechnical work, which is the phase 1 and phase 2 and those sorts of things to figure out, how the soils are there, will cost roughly $15,000. So that's a little over $20,000 to do that initial pre-development work for this particular parcel. Also, Jesse and I have worked, Jesse ran the numbers to construct that road that you were talking about earlier. And that road will cost about $575,000 to put that road through to that location with the curbs and gutters and things that we've looked at so far.
That's with curbs, gutter, is that sidewalk on the south side?
That was sidewalks both sides.
Oh, both sides, nice.
okay.
Okay, so that's really, well, still utilities would be part of this, so that's something we will be working with PUC on. But
Right, the Public Utilities has indicated so far in our meeting that we had with them earlier that they have a 6-inch water main there, and it should suit the 54 units that she's planning to build, 52, 54, whatever that was, initially, so that will be fine. They do have their electric and their gas there as well, so they didn't foresee any cost to run those through. So the, cost to get the site ready to go is the road and then the start of the soil work and those sorts of things. I don't know exactly, once we do the phase 1, phase 2 ESA or environmental service assessment, what that looks like from there, but we'll keep you apprised with each step of this. And I would assume that the service agreements for that initial work will start, will come through on July 24th. The surveyors have told me that they're booked through the middle of August, so they'll start then. But the wetland delineation, it could start at the end of this week if we decide to sign that $1,500 for that.
very good, so we're looking at probably coming for the council, although that's an amount that I think you can move forward.
The 1,500, yes,
Yes.
I probably would do
Yep.
that one if I, just to make sure that we start that
That would
process.
stay
'cause-
timely on everything.
Well, and wetland delineation needs to happen in the summer, right?
Yeah.
So,
So, Mr. Mayor, did you at one time say that those costs would probably be covered by the minerals? Do we have some funding
We
that
have
way?
minerals funding.
Funding.
Betsy, you want to comment
to
on
that.
that?
yes, so when we went down to the legislature, we received 1.15 of mineral funding for development of housing. So it's fairly broad, so this particular project can use those funds.
Great, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Very good. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you so much. G.
Excellent. So the last is resolution number 240704 to authorize a transfer of $407,000 from the Land Acquisition Fund to the Hibbing Economic Development Authority to purchase property.
Okay, hearing what Ms. Olivanti has to say regarding resolution for authorization of transfer of funds. Wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Whitney. Support by Counselor Schweberger. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent.
Jesse, do we want, before you have a bid and quotes, Mr. Prasinsky had asked us to speak to a couple things, and this might be a good time to do that. Sure. Since City Administrator Prasinsky had asked us both to respond to a couple of city projects, and I'll let you start, Jesse. Yep. And then I'll go after you.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Brzezinski asked us to give the council an update. The first one is the City Hall project. Contracts have been signed for the roof, mechanical, and clock tower glass. For the restoration project, We're working with the architect and the sole bidder of the project for that. We don't think a lot of the limestone needs to be taken out. It can be caulked and glazed. So we're trying to get that cost down a little bit without sacrificing the project and the scope of the project. The City Hall fountain, we did an assessment of that last summer. We did another one this spring. It is past its useful life in the condition that it's in. Very bad, deteriorated. If you look at the towers on the fountain, they're crumbling. The footing where the liner is for the fountain, that's cracked up. The pipes underneath, the drain pipes are broke. The supply line is broke. So we don't have a cost to rehab that. I think the cost is gonna be to demo it and build a new one if the city would to choose to do that. I don't think at this point it could be rehabilitated in the condition that it's in. So is there any questions on the City Hall project or the fountain on those?
What was the cause of, or main reason, in your opinion, of how the fountain came to that state?
You know, I wasn't here when it was built, but looking at it, I don't think it was built correct for the environment that we live in. I think that you should have a vault underneath the fountain where all the piping is exposed and not under the fountain. Because right now, the piping that's under the fountain, you would have to dig the towers out and dig the footings out of the liner to get to those pipes. So I don't think it was built correct for the environment that we live in.
Sure, I know a lot, that fountain is special to a lot of people with the centennial and everything, and can parts of it, like, because there's bricks out there with like people's names on it, and are those savable, that we
Yep.
incorporate them into a new fountain?
Counselor, depending on what we do there, I think the outside of the fountain seems to be all right. It's the interior components, the piping, the towers where the sprinklers are, those are the parts that are really deteriorated. But whatever we do, I know people paid to put the bricks there. Whatever we do, we will save those bricks and we will protect them with the project.
Very good.
Chris, over the years, I know I worked at that fountain for many years. 3 times we tunneled. We dug holes, removed bricks, tunneled under there, and then put steel plates just to support it, the bricks and stuff, because that's the only way you could get to any of the repairs. But it just kept happening and happening. And as Jesse said, it just was not built for our climate. Probably great in Florida, but not in Minnesota. And no one disputes that how the fountain has become an important part of network or the bread of this community. People like it when it was running, but it just wasn't functional. And we have a major leak there. We didn't know where the water's going. So we've been looking for a major leak, how much water the PUC was, we were reading meters. It's constantly filling. So there are some issues that it's either going to the storm water or something. It's not coming to the surface. There's some major issues.
So it was a design flaw.
It's definitely a design flaw.
But obviously fountains can function in our climate if done correctly. Okay.
Thank you, Jesse.
The next one, there's a couple more here. On the South Howard Alley, over the last couple of weeks, we had, and I don't know if the council heard about it, there was kind of a bad sewer smell from 9th Avenue to 11th Avenue. We had a bunch of residents call. We did go inspect the sewers. We found 3 storm or sanitary covers that had pick holes in them, and you could really smell the sewer when you walk by those. So we're gonna change those 3 out. Hopefully that'll fix the issue. If not, we might do a smoke test on our sanitary sewer to see if there is a leak somewhere else. We'll change those covers out, should be done by middle of next week. Flooding update, we're working on getting a total of how much debris that sanitation and Public Works hauled from the cleanup sites. So we should have that. I talked to Public Works today. We should have that by the end of next week. Flooding around 41st Street. I talked to Greg about this quite a bit. So if you recall, by the church on 41st Street, that floods every time we get a 100-year rain event. That area floods. So all of the water from Greenhaven, Home Acres, comes through there, comes across Highway 169, and goes out of a shallow creek that is south of Jack and Don's. So as of right now, we're gonna try to get in there, clear that ditch from 41st, and try to go about a 1/4 mile. Then you start getting into private property. There's a couple private properties that have culverts that ditch flows through. We're gonna try to change those out. The problem there from 41st Street, if you go 3/4 of a mile down the creek, the grade is anywhere from 0.2 to 0.8%, so it's really, really flat. So it just doesn't, the water will not get out of there fast enough. If you go there after the storms that we had, a couple weeks ago, within a day, all the water's gone, you know, but it can't take the water really fast. So we're trying to remedy that. We're gonna keep working on it. And then just, Mayor, I know you're gonna update the council on the pickleball court, but the paving there, I met with a contractor yesterday. They're gonna work to get me a number for the paving. I talked to 3 contractors. They're all booked, but the one that's in town, he said he'd get it done here. So he'll get us a number. I'm hoping that he can start working on it before the next council meeting, but I will keep the council and Greg updated on that.
Is there sub-base work to be done on that area yet?
Yeah, because when we demoed the MAC building or demoed the slab that was under the MAC, we hauled all fill in there. There's probably 2 feet of class 5.
Oh, there is, so we're
Yep.
good there.
We're good.
Which is a huge savings to start
Yep.
with.
Yep.
All right,
Thank you.
very good. All right, the 2 things that Greg wanted me to speak about is the pickleball court, of course. The ribbon cutting was today. There's no doubt it's gonna be, it's a beautiful facility. It mirrors what Grand Rapids did at their YMCA there. It's 6 very nice courts, and once the parking's done, it really cleans up that corner. There was kind of a corner in Bennett Park that just, you know, was not attractive. Right now, I think, that really adds, to that corner. But the amount of people, the partnership, I think, with, the Central Range Pickleball Club was huge. They raised $250,000 towards this project. And for people to know that this just wasn't a Hibbing project, this was commitment by the people that play the sport, to give back to the community. And it's a win-win for everybody. So I'm excited to see, how the usage goes as we move forward. And, the courts are just top notch. And it was a nice ribbon cutting today. So, I'll mention, Tom Jamar, who was, kind of took the lead for that group today. And he mentioned all the groups that donated towards that, so it was a very nice ribbon cutting. And very, very proud a facility we as a council can be very proud of. And mind you, they are doing some of the, parking lot work up there. They put the handicap parking in. I don't know if you've been up there, Jesse. The height that they put that parking at is quite interesting.
Mayor, council, so in order to do the handicap parking and tie into the sidewalks that were there, tie into the buildings, the grade that they had to meet, that was the height that they had to have.
So that, I was just curious why they didn't use a rampway. You know, I was up there today, I said, oh, that's a change.
So, yeah, so there, and I did meet with, Nick Arola
Yeah.
and Nick Bogalis up there for the project. Went over the grading. There is a grading plan
Yeah, I seen that.
outside of the parking lot. So you drive up to it, when it's incomplete, it's shocking, it's steep, but once it's finished, it'll be nice.
And, will we need additional millings on the parking lot?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna be bringing millings to create a great parking lot.
Yeah, Mr. Bogalis was gonna use up the millings that was up there, just to get the site safe, so
Yep.
there's no drop-offs before this weekend.
Okay.
And then we're gonna haul additional millings up there starting next week.
Very good. In the sewer and water, I was up there, looked at bathrooms, they're getting close to finishing the bathrooms, being stubbed in. Then they'll move into the nursing room. So they're moving forward on that aspect. They did stub out the water to where the grinder pump would go. So they'll be kind of disturbing part of the parking lot again as they move on later this fall. But at this point, the water and sewer are at the point where they had requested it to be. Okay. The tourist center, I had a chance to speak with, I was down and talked to the director Tammy down there today, and they will probably not be opening this year because of just the time frame. But it's 2 weeks to get things set up. We still aren't even ready to do it. It's about 2 weeks to order out, trinkets and sweaters and things to stock it. So the amount of time, she would rather just start out fresh next year, let it finish out this year. She is asking for some signage to say, please go to the tourist center on 12th and Howard. which I think we can put up there once we open things up again. The building itself is looking beautiful. You know, when it's done, next year when we open, and we'll be doing some additional funding for our display. The design is pretty much done, but we're gonna be looking now for the purchasing of, and funding for purchasing our display once everything is complete. And so there's still about a year and a half out to go till we have completion, 2 at the max. But we're looking at some informational boards, very nice informational boards to tie in the Mind View when we open next year, till we have everything complete. It's a process, so. Tammy was very excited about the building, and what the potential of what it could do moving forward next year. Anybody have any questions regarding those two? Okay, at that point then, we'll move on to bids and quotes. Public Works Director, Mr. Story.
Mayor, council, I'm asking council to approve the purchase of 4 4-yard front-load steel containers and 4 6-yard front steel load containers from Hartel's Disposal. This will come out of the sanitation department budget. The total cost is $11,060.00.
Okay, Mr. Story's looking for still front-load steel containers. Wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Bayless.
Support.
Support by Councilor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. At this time, we move on to boards and commissions. Ms. Sepla, I will direct it to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and city councilors, before we start that, I did want to bring something up. Andy Borland had sent me a resolution regarding waiving the commission, like going through the commission for the property for the HRA. Because we didn't get to really talk about that, I just wanted to bring it up, and Pat Green, our building official, is here for any questions, because at our last meeting, George Pagachnik was here, and he talked about, you know, why are we waiving things? Why are we, you know, we want to make sure that the public knows what the actual reasons are. The resolution that Andy sent me, it basically says the planning commission would, you know, the hearing would be waived on the sale of the property. And remember, the sale of the property only happens if there is a project with the funding. It is zoned residential. It'll stay residential. Right now, it's an R2. It could go, R2 means up to 4 homes. Is that what it is? Yeah, like a 4-home process. And then we would want it to go to either an R3 or an R4, which would be a multiplex.
There was one other option too, which was Pat, Mr. Green, would you come up to the?
I'm sorry.
No, I forgot. Yeah, plan development.
Plan development was the option, I think, if it went through, that the
Mixed
HR
use.
was most interested in, because it's mixed use.
Yep. So that would all go through the planning
Yes,
commission.
yep.
So they didn't really you wouldn't really have anything to hear, because it's part of the comprehensive plan. It's residential, staying residential. You may just make it a higher density or a mixed use, which would go through them.
Yep, through your board, yep.
Right.
Very good, but that's at a point, I mean, that decision would be made at the point that funding is secured.
Correct.
Yes, there's no reason to jump that hoop until we get there.
No.
Right, and so I'll be putting that on the next agenda, just that you would either be able to vote for or against waiving the planning commission hearing. But I just didn't want it to go unsaid, or just throw it on and then not talk about it. So, and we don't have a working session tonight, so we talked about it earlier today and felt like that was the right way to go.
On the purchase.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, not the planning or the zoning. That's gotta go through that's gotta go through the planning board.
Yeah, zoning amendment,
Yeah.
rezone, any of that.
And the key component of that is, they're parallel or adjacent to, R3s, which is multifamily. And that was one of the key components as you looked at this property.
Correct.
That made it very feasible.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay, I'll still turn it back to you under boards and commissions.
Absolutely, thank you. remember, we have a new process to appoint boards and commissioners. I apologize for the late send-out today, but we wanted to make sure that we had everything in a row, and we had 4 great candidates. 4 eligible candidates. There's 3 positions or 3 seats open on the Hibbing Economic Development Authority Board. It initially was going to be 2, and Mr. Kivala, who is one of our board members, had mentioned to me in the past that, he's gonna be retiring, and he didn't know how much time he'd be able to be here. And I did reach out to him saying, no problem, I just wanted to give you the option if you wanted, if you were still thinking that, retirement time was better for you, if you're gonna be away and missing meetings, and he asked that he'd like to stay on through the end of December.
Okay.
So the first term ending 12/31/29 would be the one that Steve Juranis currently has been working out of. And so you get 12 full years, so that would be 2 terms. This would be his 2nd term. If someone wanted to nominate him for that, so he could continue, because he has been in that role for the last year. And then the 2nd term would be it would be ending 12/31/27, and that was the term that was previously held by Shelley Hansen. And then the 3rd one would be the one that's currently held by member Kivala, and that one wouldn't start until January 1st. So the first 2 would start immediately, and our applicants are Steve Juranis, Celia Cameron, Jim Skalski, Mike Egan. And I did pass out, we have kind of a highlight of each one of them. I did email it out, and again, I apologize late if you didn't get to see it before the meeting, and that's why I did pass it out. Each one filled out an application. We ensured that they met the criteria, all 4 of them do. A city staff committee, we met and we had interviews with all 4 of them. If they didn't have the credentials, we wouldn't have interviewed all 4 of them, but they did, and all interviews were great. They all brought something different to the table, and some of them, things were the same, but we don't have a problem bringing each one forward, and then, you could, if you'd allow me to go through, I know that I sent you the directions, kind of, but our policy states how each one could be. Each counselor would get, for each of these roles, each vacancy, you get one person to nominate. And then you could nominate out of each role, but for the 2029 role, each counselor could have 1 if you choose. So we'll start with the term ending December 31st, 2029, which is currently held by Steve Juranis.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you asking, so do we make a nomination now?
Yes, then
so
you
then
could
I
make a
guess I would make that nomination
And
for
we
Steve
need a
Juranis.
second. If you don't get a second, then it doesn't go
Okay,
forward.
I would make a nomination for Steve Juranis for term ending December 31st, 2029.
Support.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Counselor Hoffman-Sockman, support by Mr. Schreiber.
Are there any other nominations?
For that position.
Correct, so you would ask that 2 more
Yeah.
times.
Is there any other, 2 times?
2 more times. Yep.
Yeah, 3 times.
Sorry.
Is there any other nominations for this specific?
For December
Sure.
31st, 2029.
December 31st. Is there any other recommendations, nominations? Hearing none, turn it back over to you.
Sure, so with Counselor Hoffman-Sockman and Counselor Schweiberger, Steve Juranis would be finishing out it would end up being a 12-year full term, but his 6-year term through December 31st, 2029.
Then don't we all have to say,
We have to vote on it.
unanimous?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you want to
Wanna
take
go?
that.
Yes, take a roll.
Yeah, no, you don't have to take a roll call, but
all
you
in
would
favor?
just, yes.
All in favor, yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
So the second one would be the term ending December 31st, 2027. So The applicants are Celia Cameron, Jim Skalsky, and Mike Egan.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I would, make a motion or make a nomination for Mike Egan for that seat.
I will support that.
okay, so we have a motion, for Mr. Egan, from Mr. Bayless, and we have support by Mr. Whitney. Any other nominations for that?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Celia Cameron for that position.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Support.
We have a support? Counselor Hildebrand. So we have two people, up for nomination for that position. One is Mike Egan, the other is Celia Cameron.
Do we have any other nominations?
Any, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Two more times. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, those are the two.
So how this works, Mike Egan was nominated first, and so we'll take a roll call vote. And we will start with, Counselor Hoffman-Sackman.
No.
Counselor Whitney.
Yes.
Counselor Faso.
Yes.
Counselor Schweiberger.
No.
Counselor Bayless.
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand.
No.
Counselor Hyduk.
Two. Good.
It's tough. It's very tough.
I'll say yes.
Okay, so, for Mike Egan, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. So he will be in the, position ending December 31st, 2027. Okay, and then, oh, you have to say all in
Oh,
favor.
yes. So hearing, 4-3 vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You do that.
Opposed, nay?
Oh, I'm sorry, you
No.
were right.
Four to three.
We were done with the roll.
We didn't
call.
need to do
Sorry,
that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That was the vote.
Right. So the third one is term ending December 31st, 2031. It's a 6-year term, that's why it, and, right now it goes through March, and we're gonna get them all back in line with December, so that's why it goes to December 31st, 2031.
I would make a motion, for that position for Mr.
Okay.
Support. Or second.
I hear saying that. Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Celia Cameron.
Okay, we have a nomination of Celia,
I'd support.
support by Counselor Bayless. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? So we have two.
Okay, so the first one is for Jim Skalsky. He was nominated first. Counselor Hoffman-Sackman.
Yes.
Counselor Whitney.
This was for Jim?
Jim Skalsky.
This is hard, they, all four of them are very good.
Yeah. Like I said, we had really great interviews with them, so.
There's not one more spot open, is there?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Counselor Faso.
No.
Counselor Schweiberger.
No.
Counselor Bayless.
No.
Counselor Hildenbrand.
No.
Counselor Hyduk.
Yes.
So,
5-2.
yep, there we go.
So, Ms. Cameron?
Yep, so I'm just gonna start over because then we, okay. So for Celia Cameron, Counselor Hoffman-Sackman.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Whitney.
Yes.
Counselor Faso.
Yes.
Counselor Schweiberger.
Yes.
Counselor Bayless.
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand.
Yes.
Counselor Hyduk, or Mayor Hyduk, sorry.
Well, I nominated Skulsky, so I would say no, although I really do like Celia.
So what's your answer?
He said,
Yeah, it would be no at this time. I just want to say, yep. But I think she's a great.
Yep, so that would be 6-1.
Yep.
Yep, thank you. And like I said, we're gonna get a little more polished on this, but meaning those of us who are doing the committee interviews. But I really appreciate you, with your patience as we're going through this, because it is a lot. And then when you find 4 really great applicants, it's really hard, so.
Well, I think we had, we have experience and we have knowledge. We had 4 good candidates.
Right.
That's what we're striving towards.
Yep.
I'd just like to say thank you for doing that. The last time really threw me for a loop, and I didn't know what the heck was going on with names were flying everywhere.
And
I didn't know who they
I didn't
were.
want to do that to Mayor Hyduk tonight because, I read and reread the instructions and our policy, and so I hope you don't mind that I took that over, but it was easier to do it that way, and then we just kind of walked through it, so.
well,
Yes.
Helped me make a much more informed decision, so
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank
salute
you.
the council for great decision-making tonight on appointing Kita.
Thank you so much.
And I welcome Steve, Celia, and Mike on the HEDA board. Okay, we will move on to license and permits. Approve the raffle permit of the Hibbing Area Chamber of Commerce to hold a raffle on Monday, August 5th, 2024 at Mesaba Country Club. Wishes of the council.
motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Bettis,
Support.
support by Counselor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. To approve the 2024 transit merchant license of Dylan James Horn, DBA Grilled Cheese Galore, to sell food in Hibbing from July 11th, 2024 through July 10th, 2025 pursuant to the City of Hibbing ordinance. Wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Counselor Whitney,
Support.
support by Counselor Fossil. Any discussion? I like grilled cheese, so. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 3, approve the temporary on-sale liquor license of Boomtown Brewery and Wood Fire Grill to dispense alcohol at the Android on July 11th, July 23rd, and August 3rd. Wishes of the council. Motion approved by Counselor Schreiber.
Support.
Support Counselor Hoffman-Sockman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mayor?
Yes.
So, we will need a motion and a second to go into closed session, and if you'd read that, and then if you would also like to have the motion and the second for the adjournment, then we won't return back in here afterwards.
Okay, so we will, a motion to go into closed session.
Yep.
A motion for adjournment, but I should read the opening statement first? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the agenda item is we will be going into closed session. The agenda item is an evaluation of the performance of a city Hibbing employee under Minnesota statute, section 13D.
There's some, I don't know, there's some comments in the back here. I think there's about a process here.
We may need to reopen the set or stay open, so please don't
do the
adjourn.
Oh, don't adjourn, very good, thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
That's
Thank you.
what
Yeah.
this third part is,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Okay. So anyways, I'll start over. The agenda item is evaluation of the performance of a city Hibbing employee under Minnesota statute section 13D.05/subdivision 3, clause A. The employee is Kelly Esty. Mr. Esty received written notice of this meeting. I will now entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting for the evaluation of performance of Mr. Esty as a city employee under Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3A. So what I would need is a motion to go to closed session.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Bayless, or support by Counselor Schweberger. And we will now go into closed session, and we will come back out of closed session and then close our, okay, I'll say this at the end. Yeah. Okay, well, we are back. I'm looking for a motion to come out of closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Counselor Schweberger. Supported by Counselor Hildebrand. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So what we have, following closed meeting for evaluation of performance of City of Hibbing employee, Mr. Kelly Esty, under Minnesota statute section 13D, .05 subdivision 3, clause A, the City of Hibbing City Council meeting is now open, and the time is about
08.
7:08. Members, I'll entertain a motion of the following. Removal. That Kelly Esty be removed from the employment of the City of Hibbing effective July 11, 2024, for non-disciplinary reasons as specified in City Administrator Greg Pacinci's letter, Mr. Esty, Kelly Esty, of July 2nd, 2024. And that the City Administrator provide Kelly Esty with an appropriate notice related to this decision. So I need a motion.
So moved. Oh,
So moved by Counselor Bayless, support by Counselor Schweberger, to remove Mr. Esty. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody watching, inviting everyone this weekend to a parade, street dance, everything that's going on. It's a great First Avenue Mile is back this year. So a lot of stuff going on, as well as the high school reunion and 100-year anniversary. Have fun, but be responsible and enjoy yourselves. At that, could we have adjournment for our next meeting?
so moved.
Motion, so moved by Counselor Bayless. Support by Counselor Hildebrand. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.